Very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
Headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. Face masks will still be compulsory on public transport in London, despite the law changing on Monday.
United against racism, hundreds of people take the knee beside the repaired mural of Marcus Rashford in support of racially abused England players.
Meanwhile, Labour MPs are calling for new powers to ban anyone convicted of online racist abuse from football matches for life.
Good morning. The cost of living is on the up. Food, energy and clothing prices are all rising. So I'll look at what it could mean for the pound in your pocket.
Good morning. A record-breaking day for England's cricketers. They hit the highest run chase ever at Edgbaston in a one-day international as they beat Pakistan by 3 wickets to win the series 3-0.
And after the stormy start to the week, sunshine and warmth is back. Fancy a dip? Well, I'll take a dip into the forecast to tell you the full details here on Breakfast.
Good morning. It's Wednesday. It's the 14th of July, and face coverings will remain mandatory for passengers on London's transport network, despite the legal requirement to wear them being lifted in England from Monday.
The city's mayor, Sadiq Khan, said the move was aimed at keeping passengers and staff safe. Masks will still be a requirement in Scotland, and in Wales people will need to wear them on public transport and in healthcare settings.
Here's more from our transport correspondent, Caroline Davis.
From Monday, it's no longer the law to wear a mask on public transport in England. Instead, it's about personal responsibility. But the government has said it still wants people to wear face coverings in crowded settings, such as busy trains or buses. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan has asked Transport for London to make it a condition of carriage, meaning that if passengers travel on any of its services, including the buses and tubes, they must wear a mask even after Monday. TfL will be the first operator to do this, although Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham hasn't ruled out doing the same on the city's tram network. The Scottish Government has also said it will continue to require face masks on public transport.
On the issue of mandating mitigations like face coverings, let me just say this. It is my view that if government believes measures like this matter, and this government does, we should say so. We should do what is necessary to ensure compliance, and we should be prepared to take any resulting flack from those who disagree. We shouldn't lift important restrictions to make our lives easier and then expect the public to take responsibility for doing the right thing anyway.
Wales is also expected to do the same. Unions have welcomed the news, but some are worried about how enforceable it will be and that it could lead to disputes on board. Some operators are worried that requiring masks on public transport could make people feel like the service is less safe than other indoor places like restaurants or pubs. But the Mayor has said that he's doing it to make the public feel more confident. Caroline Davis, BBC News.
We're joined right now by our political correspondent Ben Wright. Morning to you. And there seems to be a sort of differentiation, at least between nations, isn't there, over face masks?
Yeah, and even within nations. So you have London now doing its own thing. So as Caroline was saying, from Monday, if you travel on the London Underground or a bus or the Overground, you will have to wear a mask. It will be a condition of travel, just as it's a condition not to drink alcohol on the London Underground. You will have to be wearing a face covering unless you're exempt from that rule. And there'll be enforcement officers making sure you can't get on a tube or bus unless you are wearing a mask. And Sadiq Khan had been arguing that there should be a national-wide mandate, that it should continue beyond Monday. He's now doing his own thing, saying that to protect passengers, to instill confidence, to try and suppress the virus, he will be doing this. But it means if you then travel from a London station to somewhere else in England, you won't have to wear a mask. It will be advised in crowded places, but it won't be mandatory. And then, as we've been hearing in Scotland and Wales, the rules change again. There will be a requirement to wear masks from Monday. So a fractured approach across the UK.
We'll also be speaking to Sadiq Khan here, actually, 7:10 on the programme. Also, in other news, Labour MPs are calling on the government to ban anyone convicted of online racial abuse from going to football matches as well. There is so much discussion around this still, isn't there?
Yeah, Louise, there is. The fallout from the abuse that trio of England footballers received, racial abuse after the European Championship final, continues. And I think there's deep political concern about where we should go next in terms of policy. And there will be a debate in the Commons later on, an urgent question that Labour have secured, in which they will question the government on what more can be done to clamp down on the online abuse that people receive racial abuse and what the punishment should be. Labour are saying that people who are found to be racially abusing players online should receive a ban from going to football matches. In the same way that at the moment, if you are caught or found to be racially abusing players from the terraces, you can be banned from grounds. They want that extended to people who commit online abuse as well. So that debate will be in the Commons later.
And we'll discuss that further here in the programme. Ben, thank you.
Coronavirus restrictions will be eased in Scotland from Monday as the country moves to level 0, but some measures will remain. Some social distancing rules will be maintained outdoors and the mandatory use of face coverings will remain in place. There will also still be limits on the number of people able to meet both indoors and outdoors.
Meanwhile, plans for easing restrictions in Wales will be set out by the Welsh Government later today. Ministers have already said that face coverings will remain mandatory on public transport and in healthcare settings, but they'll announce whether restrictions can be eased to allow more socialising indoors, including in people's homes.
An outbreak of COVID-19 has been confirmed on the Royal Navy's flagship, HMS Queen Elizabeth. The BBC has been told there have been about 100 cases on the aircraft carrier, which is partway through a tour of the world. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said all crew on the deployment had received both vaccine doses and the outbreak was being managed.
Police in South Africa say more than 70 people have died in violence that has erupted since the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma last week.
10 of those who have died were killed in a stampede during looting at a shopping centre on Monday night. The military is now being deployed to help the overstretched police. Mark Lobel has more.
Shocking footage on social media shows open warfare amongst citizens in former President Jacob Zuma's backyard.
Okay, let's go.
Pitting South African against South African. Looters against armed locals.
Where's John with the shotgun?
Local militia are stepping in as elsewhere the police are simply overwhelmed. It's perhaps no surprise the army has been called in, but that brings its own challenges.
If they start shooting, there will be war, and that's the thing that we don't want here in South Africa.
The fire department vehicles being escorted by the Metro Police.
In affected areas, public transport is suspended, with some roads now off limits, prompting the temporary closure of South Africa's biggest oil refinery.
The jobs that are being lost at the moment are going to exacerbate the situation, and we don't need this.
It's perhaps ironic that the jailing of this man, former President Jacob Zuma, as part of the government's efforts to call out billions of dollars of alleged corruption, to clean up South Africa's economy and make it attractive to foreign investors, is now triggering further economic damage, not to mention loss of life. But why? Tweets like these from President Zuma's daughter suggest a political motivation and hint of a deep split within the ruling ANC party, of which she's a member.
The tweets have criticised President Ramaphosa's administration for her father's imprisonment. They've accused the government of propping up the interests of minority whites and elites.
But South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa insists no political cause can justify this violence, inflaming his pandemic and poverty-hit country. Mark Lobel, BBC News.
Prince Charles has warned that the UK is in danger of destroying Britain's rural communities by letting small family farms go to the wall.
Speaking to the BBC, he said the focus needs to move away from producing cheap and mass-produced food and to put nature back at the heart of farming. Here's our chief environment correspondent, Justin Rowlett.
Super efficient, intensive agriculture is a dead end, Prince Charles said today. He warns that the pursuit of cheap food has damaged our soils and watercourses, as well as producing emissions that have driven global warming.
Such has been the damage to the natural systems we depend upon. We must achieve profound and rapid change to reverse it. We must put nature back at the heart of the equation.
The Prince is adamant that small farms must be a part of that effort. He has been deeply concerned with food and the environment for most of his adult life.
Our current approach is forcing many small family farms to the wall. If they go, it will quite simply rip the heart out of the British countryside and break the backbone of Britain's rural communities.
Prince Charles praises the efforts of Marcus Rashford and Jamie Oliver to improve the nation's diet.
I think sometimes just the smell of the fruit and vegetables is what...
He believes we need to switch from industrial farming methods and adopt more sustainable practices.
Only by benefiting nature can we benefit people, and that will ensure the future of our living planet.
Prince Charles's comments come ahead of the publication tomorrow of the National Food Strategy, the first major review of Britain's food system in over 70 years. Justin Rowlatt, BBC News.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.